it's really interesting as we've been talking through economy and financial markets. We just veer right back to geopolitics because
all the time.
Politics, you know, all the markets have become so political. So this is, there's no doubt, this is the funniest story. Talk about staying in a state of amusement. The Federal Accounting Standards Board announcement, which shifts the U.S. budget into Never Never Land. This was the ultimate proof that Catherine has been right for 20 years.
Yes, yes, it really
It
is.
was, you know, it was so funny because for 20 years, as you know, the amount of psychic garbage that's been dumped on me for, you know, I've been told maybe over 1 million times that I'm wrong. You can't imagine. I've sat at luncheons in Washington while partners at law firms tried to bully me into admitting I was wrong. I mean, it's just, you know, it's been all over the world. All I know is every time I got another load of psychic garbage, the world inched another inch closer to where I was standing, and I've been refusing to move. And then suddenly the Federal Accounting Standards Board simply leaped into my arms and kissed me. So what happened? When Dr. Skidmore came out with his marvelous report, the first thing that happened was the Department of Defense made a huge deal about the fact they're going to do an audit. Now, this is, you know, it would be hard for me to say that with a straight face. I give them credit for keeping a straight face because if you're missing 21 trillion to say you're going to do an audit of a subsequent year and not touch or look for the 21 trillion is just like, are you kidding me? Now, they did say they would write a report about the 6.5 trillion in 2015. They wrote a report, and as we saw, it came out in December, but we found it this spring. It turns out every number in it was redacted.
Redacted, I know.
But what has come out is, in fact, it wasn't the IG who redacted the numbers, it was the Navy.
Navy, yes. Yes.
And who's running the space for us?
Well, when you said that last night and said Navy, I just thought, oh, ding, ding, ding. If you really drill down into the alternative literature, I'd say over the past 10 to 15 years, even going further back than that, if you know where to look, there is this relationship between the U.S. Navy, Admiral Bobby Inman, of course, who went on to SAIC. Well, if you look at the SAIC Corporation, one of the things that they've been heavily involved in, you really have to dig for it, is anti-gravity research. And to me, when you said Navy, I just thought that was the red bulb on the suspicion.
Well, remember when Gary McKinnon hacked into DOD, he found the space fleets being run by the Navy.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Anyway, so they announced this audit, and the PR on the audit was incredible. It was a real pushback. You know, it was all the NPR, Reuters, New York Times. They're all in there. And so I get hit with this wave, and I have to explain why this is meaningless because there's still 21 trillion missing. And one of the things, God bless them, because what the Federal Accounting Standards Board is saying, we take the right to basically waive the Constitution. Exactly. Now, they don't have the governance authority or the legal authority to waive the U.S. Constitution, but apparently they think they can. And so what they said was that the DOD can determine that a project is classified and move it off balance sheet or into separate accounts that aren't on the public balance sheet. Because in fact, if they don't do this, then they would have to redact the DOD statements, which means they would have to redact the U.S. financial statements. Now, what this means, Joseph, is that they're saying it is impossible to comply with the Constitution and the laws related to financial management. Yep. And as a matter of policy, they're not going to.
Right.
That's number one. But number two, what they're saying is the secrecy is so great that their only alternative is to not be able to publish financial statements for the U.S.
Right.
And so what they're doing is they're setting up a situation where a small group of people who are unknown can turn an amount of money which is undefined and unknown, secret, and keep it that way.
Yep. Yep.
Which means the U.S. government accounts are completely meaningless.
They're completely meaningless, and it's also an indicator of the extent
right.
to which all of these black projects, secret research projects, and so on, have now come to dominate American financial policy. And to me, that's very disturbing. I mean, when you told me that story last night, Catherine, and the reason I'm over here laughing is the only thing I can think of in terms of this of this so-called audit is Vatican Bank. That's the only other institution I can think of that's rolling in money that you cannot find any financial statement. Which makes you wonder just what the connection might be.
Supposedly France just changed that, but I haven't seen any signs. So, I mean, this is so, but for them to admit...
It's surreal.
It is surreal. It's
yeah.
Well, what we're talking about is we're talking about a secret empire.
Yes.
Which is completely...
off the books.
Out of control.
And out of control.
It's completely out of control. And
you're talking about an entity that effectively has hollowed out all of the institutions of government in this country.
Right.
And is basically functioning as a kind of parasitical existence on it all.
Well, but let's talk about who this is. This is not generals. This is corporations.
Yes.
These are large corporations that run the military, intelligence, and black infrastructure.
Yes.
And they, through the federal credit, as long as the dollar holds, they can borrow an infinite amount of money.
Right.
Especially with securities fraud.
Yep.
And they can spend it, and whatever they spend it on and build, they can own.
Yep.
And they can do it on an out-of-control basis with our credit and our money.
Yep.
And report nothing and no one and keep the ownership. It's completely, utterly out of control.
It's totally out of control. It's complete fraud. And the problem with it, Catherine, is ultimately that system cannot be sustainable.
Right. How do you...
You can't.
I've run companies. I've run a federal agency. How do you run something when there's no accountability, there are no laws, there's no performance criteria, there's no...
Right.
It's just out of control.
It's out of control in the sense that it's out of control to the public eye. But I really think Richard Dolan was onto something here when he coined the term for this whole concept of breakaway civilization. Because a civilization connotes border controls, which they certainly have in their underground infrastructures. It connotes a system of governance and maintenance. So in other words, what this whole audit suggested to me, quite frankly, was this is the secret government. This is its expression. This is the proof that it's there.
Well, what you're saying is, whether you call it the breakaway civilization or the deep state,
right?
You're talking about an entirely independent governance system that has total control of the U.S. government.
Yes.
So it is the ultimate in the financial coup.
Yeah.
It is the end result of the financial coup d'etat.
Yeah.
You now have a secret group in complete control who can basically do whatever they want above the law.
Above the law. You know, it's taken a long time to manifest itself. It began, as far as I'm concerned, when Harry Truman took the decision to recover all that Japanese Axis loot and put it in the hands of the National Security Council.
Right. You know, you had the 47 Act, you had the 49 Act, then Eisenhower put the CIA, who had that loot, in charge of security for Area 51, and then Bush gave private corporations the ability to do classified work, and that was it.
Yep. Yep.
Okay, well, we've now reached the absurd point. I'm right, Skidmore's right. You know, then the question is, what are we going to do? Because you're talking about a system which has a very high rate of entropy.
Oh, yes, absolutely.